Have you ever wanted to mount a tank bag to your K1600 GTL? Today we're going to do just that, mounting the RKA Shiloh 13-liter tank bag onto this 2016 K1600 GTL exclusive. Stick around to find out how.
Wires from Greensboro and North Carolina.
Welcome back to Touring America. Today we're going to show you how to install a RKA Shiloh 13-liter tank bag on this 2016 K1600 GTL exclusive. There's these 3 straps and 1 zip tie that come in the kit along with the instructions. You can see that here. So go ahead and unbox that. Make sure you've got all 3 straps and pull out the instructions, and they're pretty straightforward. This shouldn't be too big of a project for most of you. On the kind of the scale of 1 to 5, where the applying of the Scotch Guard Pro Series Clear Bra product was a 3 to a 4, this is going to be a total 1. So this is what you need to do to start. You've got 3 straps in the package plus your zip tie. I'm going to take 2 of those straps and I'm going to put them aside right now. And I'm going to take the first strap and I'm going to remove the buckle as such. And I'm going to put that aside. I'm just going to put that in my pocket right now. And they give you this zip tie. This zip tie is going to act as a needle into the system. And this is a tip that you can use for a lot of times when you're trying to take some of this 1-inch webbing and get it into tight places. It actually will give you a little bit of gap in there. So take the pointy end of your zip tie and work it through the strap near the end. And with just a little bit of working, it should poke right through. And there you go. The fat end on the zip tie will catch on the webbing. And now I've got a great needle that I can bend and flex so that I can get it through the areas that I need to get it in. The place that we're going to put this strap is up near the front seat mounting hubs. You've got these 2 black rubber pieces that the front of the seat mounts onto, and there's a gap underneath there. We're going to take this zip tie and feed it from right to left when you're facing the front of the bike through the gap that we find there. I'm going to slide it through and there it goes. You can see I've got it on both sides. And I'm going to use that. I'm going to pull that strap right through. I can then remove the zip tie, put it aside, and with just a little bit of working, the hole that went into the webbing for pushing the zip tie through just disappears. So I'm going to pull this through, and you'll notice that on the one side, I've got this loop. I'm going to feed this non-looped end through the loop and pull it tight and get that knot nice and centered so that when the seat comes and sits here, the strap is going to be nice and flat as it comes up from underneath the seat. Once I get it there, I'm going to take that buckle that I put in my pocket earlier and I'm going to weave that back into the 1-inch webbing. And so I'm just going to take that and put that back in. Okay. And now I've got that strap and it will be ready to hook on to the bag when we're ready to mount it. Now let's move up and do the top mounts near the steering column. Now that we've got the rear strap attached, let's move up to the front of the bike and attach the 2 front straps, 1 on each side. Just like we did at the rear, we're going to use our zip tie and thread it through the 1-inch webbing. I've already done that, as you can see. We're going to use it just the same way. It's kind of hard to see at the front because of all these cables and the clutch reservoir hose that are in the way. But I'm pointing to it right now with the tip of the zip tie. You can see it's a horizontally running post that attaches the left side of the frame. And it attaches on the right side there to the steering head. I'm going to put a very sharp bend right into the zip tie. I've got to really kind of make a J shape there so that when I poke it through on the seat side, it curves up and around and comes out on the fairing side of that horizontal member. I'm pulling the hoses and cables out of the way and I'm going to feed that through down into there. You'll notice that I'm having a little bit of trouble here. I didn't have quite enough bend in it. So I'm trying to reach my hand up into the front, and it's a pretty tight fit up there. I'm trying to get my fingers, and I can actually touch it, but I can't quite get a grasp on the far end of that zip tie. So I pull it back out, and I bend it even a little bit more. Notice the sharp angle in there. I actually do two separate ones here, so that when I shove it through, it's going to curl right back up around on me. And I'm going to shove it back down in there, and again on the seat side. I want to go from near to far as I'm pushing it through. And we'll get that in there this time, and hopefully it'll pop right up. And I get my hand in there, and here we go. I'm going to be able to pull that right out. Oh, dropped it. But it's right there. We'll grab it again and pull it through. And it's going to be right there. Okay? So now we've got it on both sides. I'll just pull the pointed end of the zip tie, and the 1-inch webbing will go right through. And I want to make sure it doesn't bind up on any of the cables, so I kind of give it a little tuck there. But then I'll pull the zip tie out, continue to pull the strap through, and just like on the bottom, I'm going to pull that through over the top and end up putting it through the loop on the other side of that 1-inch webbing, making sure that I do not pinch those cables and hoses that run from the left-hand control module. So I get that through the loop, and then I pull it tight. And I want to make sure that the loose end, the non-looped end, is on the top of that horizontal member, not underneath. Otherwise, I won't be able to pull it tight properly, and it's going to shift over time. And there we go. After I've got it tightened up, it's going to look just like this, with the 1-inch webbing pulled longitudinally down the tank. It's going to lay nice and flat so that when I hook the buckle to it, it's going to match up really nice with the tank bag. Now let's move over to the right side and do the same thing. Over on the right side of the bike, it's harder to get a good video angle in here because the bike leans to the left. Getting the camera in from the right side is a little bit tight. But that's not the only thing that's tight. Getting the zip tie started on the right side is also a little bit tighter. And it's tighter because of all the brake cables, hoses, and the throttle cable. There's just not as much slack in them, and the way they bend on the right side doesn't really lend themselves to being moved around very much. But just like on the left side, I put a nice sharp J-bend into the zip tie so that when I do get it underneath there, it will curve back up on the back side. The good news is that there is more room between the steering column and the dashboard on the right side to get your hand down in there and grab that zip tie as it comes through. So I was able to get my left hand down in there, first shot, and we'll pull it through just like we did on the other side. Okay. Got it nice and over. And just like on the other side, it's important to get that strap coming over the top and not underneath. I get it through, pull that zip tie out, and put it right through the loop and pull it tight, just as I did on the other side. It's now going to lay parallel to the other unit, right down the sides of that center tank bag area. And we're ready to move on and add the clips. Now that all the straps are in place, the next thing to do is to actually mount the bag onto the straps and onto the tank. The buckles near the front edge of the tank there, you'll notice, are kind of lined up about even with the front edge of the gas filler cap. That's way longer than they will ultimately end up being. But for now, we're going to start with them there because it's easy to get to them. So I'm going to bring the bag up. You'll notice the rubber mounting base underneath the clips. That prevents marring on your finish. I'm going to clip both of those Fastech buckles in place and then pull the free ends of the straps, and that will draw the bag up towards the steering head. And I'm going to keep kind of adjusting them little by little. And what I'm really looking for is for that rubber base that goes underneath those top Fastech buckles to be lined up with the center portion of that tank. That lets me know that it's in the right place. And the reason I know that is from my last 2013 GTL, through trial and error, that's ended up being right where I wanted them to be. There's a rubber piece just like that on the front of those buckles. You saw it as I was installing it. That's what I want to be lined up on the very front. When the handlebars turn here, they will lightly contact the tank bag, but not so much as to hit the kill switch or any of the controls. So don't worry about it if they just barely touch. At the front, you'll notice how much extra strap I have left now. Don't worry about that at this point. We're going to come back and we're going to trim that off and treat those later. But now that I've got the back on, we're going to move down and we're going to hook up the single strap. But before we do, I want to talk for a second about the bag. Right? The nice thing about this bag is the mounting kits are $15. So that if you want, you can buy additional mounting kits for this bag and mount it on as many bikes as you want. Some of the bags that have the ring mounts that go right onto the gas filler cap are nice, but those mounting rings are expensive. So to move one of those bags from bike to bike to bike isn't cheap. With the RKA bags, the mounting is cheap and you can move it around. I'm now going to take that back strap and clip it in and pull it tight. See, I'm really pulling it down with quite a bit of effort. You notice when I rock the bag back and forth, that mounting strap doesn't move at all. Right? It may bump in the wind, and if you go over a bump, the top will shake, but it's on there really, really sturdy. It's not going anywhere. The great thing about this mount system is that rubber base. It will never mar the finish on my paint. On my 13, I never had any issues with that, and I did not have a paint protector up underneath there. So next we're going to go and I'm going to show you how to cut those straps off and to treat the ends so that they don't fray over time. Now that I got that all mounted, the next thing I'm going to do is to treat these straps. I'm going to cut them off and treat the ends. The first thing to do with that is to detach the bag so that I have easier access to the straps up front. And I've got a pair of scissors there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave about 3 inches of free end after it's gone through that Fastex buckle, because I do need to be able to still grab it and pull it. If it's too short, it's going to be hard to do. So I'm going to cut that off, both of them, about 3 inches longer than what you really need just to clear the buckle. And those cut real easy with a pair of scissors. Comes right off. If they're too long, they're going to be flapping around up there in the front, and that's not what you want. So shorter is what you want, but still long enough to grab. And then I've got just a piece of cardstock there, and I'm going to hold it underneath the end of the 1-inch webbing while I use a lighter to heat up the edge. That's going to melt that material that it's made out of, that nylon, and it's going to melt all the little fibers together so that they don't fray. I put the cardstock underneath because the end can burn and start to drip that molten nylon, and I don't want that to get on my paint. You actually see that there. There's a little bit of fire on it. I just blew that out, and I'm now tamping down the edge with the back of my lighter. And that's going to make sure that all those fibers are pushed down tightly together. And then it cools off, and it's not going to fray. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the other strap. Light it, get it nice and hot, and as you watch it, you'll see that it'll start to curl and shrivel just a little bit as the ends of those get singed. And we'll melt that, put it back on the cardstock, and just tap it down again. Now that all the straps are welted, we're going to take those loose ends and we're going to fasten them down. We're going to do that with rubber bands. All I had in my bag of bands right now were red, but what works really great for this are Ranger bands. They're a little bit fatter, they're a little bit smaller diameter, so you don't have to wrap them as many times, and they're black, so they look good too. So if you got Ranger bands, they work great for this. But for now, I'm actually going to just take these red rubber bands, and I'm going to loop them over because of the size of my bands that I had at 4 times, and that's going to be put the rubber band at just the right length to keep the 2 pieces of the webbing flat to each other and not let them flap around. I'm going to do that same thing to the other 2 pieces of webbing as well, so that they're all fastened nice and secure. We'll come back and we'll see what that looks like with the bag attached. All right, and there's a really good look at what that looks like at the end. I've got the Fastex buckle clipped in. I've got that rubber band turned over enough times where it's just flat, okay? And the real reason I like to do this on the bottom is that I've got a powered tank bag. And where I run my power lead out, I can actually slip that through that rubber band and it will hold it in place while I'm riding, again, keeping it from blowing all over. So all 3 attachment points look just like this. To adjust it at this point, I generally never touch the 2 straps at the front. Okay? I just go ahead, grab a hold of this pigtail, and I'll give it a yank, okay, and pull that down tight as I need to. Works out great. The one thing that I do now that's different from the thing that RKA recommends in their promotional video is the way that I move the tank bag out of the way when I go to fill up gas. Right? If you watch the RKA demo video from their website, they will actually recommend come in and disconnecting the 2 front straps and taking the bag back and setting it on your seat. Obviously that works great, but that's 2 straps, and the 2 straps are in a relatively confined area, right? Depending on how tight you've got that bag adjusted and pulled taut this way, right, longitudinally, it may be pretty hard to kind of get that back on without loosening the straps up, clipping them in, and then retightening them. So that's not what I do. I'm going to put this on. You can see it's kind of tight, a little bit tough to clip it in. It's not impossible, but when you've got gloves on, if you're making a quick gas stop, it can be difficult. Because of the way that the K1600 GTL handlebars are, there's a nice big gap in here that's about the exact same width as the Shiloh bag. So what I do is I'll come in here, unclick the back clip. Now I only have to do one, and it's in a very readily accessible area. I'll pull my power cable out, and I'll actually flip that forward up onto my handlebars near the dash. Right? I can then come in here, pop the cap on the gas tank, fill it up, and when I'm finished, I just roll it back down, come back in, clip the single clip in place, and run my power cable back underneath my rubber band. And I'm done. And that's how you install the 13-liter Shiloh tank bag on the K1600 GTL. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel right here. Click on the link on the screen. We'll take you to the channel homepage where you can click the red subscribe link. We really need your subscriptions, folks, if we're going to grow the channel and make more great videos. As always, post questions below. We're happy to talk to you. Make sure you come back and see the future videos that we've got lined up. We're going to be putting some electric power into our tank bag, and we've also got some foot pegs from Ilium Works coming in that we're going to install on the BMW stock engine guards. So stay tuned for those videos in the weeks to come.